Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. You're listening to the kro.Productions podcast, where we talk about a range of things, but the why for this particular podcast is honestly just getting out some additional content, but as well as supporting our YouTube channel to ensure that we're continuing to learn and live, and that part of living life outside of the work that we do. This is a central focus for not just our channel, but we try to make it a central focus for our life. And this is a continuation of some of those efforts. We do have a YouTube channel, and I say we, I am married, and sometimes my spouse stars in some of those YouTube videos. But this podcast is a continuation of the YouTube channel, kro.Productions. The link to that will be somewhere in the show notes. You can also just search for it, kro.Productions on YouTube. For today's content, this is our premise to the podcast show, where we're going to talk a little bit about our why and somewhat delve into the what of what it is that we're going to be doing with this series. One, we're going to review the podcast trailer within this first initial episode. And yeah, I know that was recorded a while back, but you know what? Part of living life outside of the work that we do reconciles a very real thing that occurs, that life happens. And when life happens, to the point that it kind of gives us a not so subtle reminder to get back about being intentional about living life, that's what's happened here. And that's just honest and real. And that's what we hope to just try to talk a little bit more about. Not just the struggles, but the successes that we've had in terms of refocusing and recentering our life when things aren't necessarily when we aren't necessarily living life as intentionally as what we would like. Two, for this particular episode, we're going to talk about what the future shows are going to cover. So some of the videos, some of the podcasts, they'll have a video component. I'm envisioning some really lighthearted content mixed with some serious topics. The lighthearted stuff, though, how we in our mid-40s want to improve our mountain biking skills, how we can provide some examples for bikes and specific gear. Sometimes things like that go over better when you have visuals, and we happen to have people in our lives that have some expertise in that area, and wouldn't it be great if we could, showcase not just some of the gear that we use through a video or through photos and things like that, but also to show websites where we can talk about reviews and where we can go find some of this gear for a good cost. But the other part of the podcast, too, from a storytelling perspective, sometimes visuals are definitely just helpful for specific stories, and a video could be a part of that story. So whether it be content that we're specifically focusing on with our life and living life outside of the work that we do, or there's a story that is around us or in our immediate life that we want to showcase somehow, we can edit this part out. But also from a storytelling perspective, sometimes videos are great when you want to get out some additional info. Maybe there's a website link. Maybe there's a story somewhere else that you can link up or something that you can show on screen. Sometimes things like that really help shape a story. So we want to leave room for potentially having a video component to not just the audio podcast. There'll be another, blog posting and essentially that goes along with hopefully each of the podcasts that we do. And you can find that on the website, kro.Productions.net, and we'll just have a section there with a lot of the show notes. But let me be honest about something, though. We're just really getting started in this podcasting endeavor, and honestly, still YouTube in general. When the pandemic hit, we were stuck inside like everyone else, and I needed something to keep my brain busy. I'd already finished my dissertation, and I needed something to keep my brain busy in the evenings, and picking up new skills and wanting to continue to learn became a huge part of what I do and continue to do in the evenings. But that being said, we're not going to be experts at any of this. We like the learning. We are lifelong learners. We both have our doctorates and are enrolling back in graduate school again for a second master's. We like the concept of learning. We both work full-time jobs in education, and learning and lifelong learning is just going to be something that is forever ingrained within us. So we're going to try to do new things. We're going to try to learn new skills. And that's really where some of the fun and creative things can start to happen. So with that, in mind also, some of the content will be more serious in tone because you know what? Sometimes life isn't all sunshine and roses, and we have to tackle some of the hard stuff. But the premise of the YouTube channel that this podcast will, often support is to live life outside of the work that we do. So when work is a little bit much, what do you do? I don't know about you, but gosh, I'm really hoping you get to dive into some sort of passion that you have, something that helps bring you back to center. And this could mean so many things for so many different people. but it means finding the joy in the things that I get to do outside of work. And honestly, learning and continuing to learn new things is a huge part of that. The overall goal with not just this podcast, but the YouTube efforts, talking, sharing, storytelling, sharing stories, getting better at storytelling, because, lifelong learners here. Giving people stuff to listen to while perhaps in the car or doing stuff around the house. Admittedly, my interests are all over the map. That's probably evident in a lot of the things that I like to pick up in my free time. Probably my spouse would say the same thing. So let me just reiterate it. I'm learning. We are learning. We are not going to be perfect at this. And we're sorry that things might be, a little bit figure it out as we go. Sure, I'm sorry about that. But honestly, that's kind of the point though, right? Like, we are figuring life out sometimes as we go, and even the best laid plans, we got to figure out how to pivot and detour. So I don't know about you, but some days I'm just better at adjusting and pivoting with intentional purpose. Some days I'm not. But like everyone else, we're human. And hopefully, like everyone else, learning and enjoying something new helps bring some, intrigue and interesting into our life. But everything I just said, that's really more of the premise of not just the podcast, but the channel. Live, learn, do, make memories, share those memories. And to us, that means we're being pretty successful at living life outside of the work that we do. So talk and engage with folks in a new way is what this effort is. And most importantly, continuing to learn new things and appreciate that process of learning. But that's really what kind of keeps our brain occupied. So if we then think about transitioning into recapping the trailer, then yeah, that was a while back. But if you listen to the trailer, then you learned that on this podcast that I, along with my better half, as able, we're going to have some guests along the way, kind of just find something that's really important and fun to talk about, at least for us. And within that trailer, I touched on, coming to terms with this, my own understanding with this lack of confidence with the concepts of working to live rather than living to work. For so long, I struggled with the concept of going to work, and it was all consuming to me. I was living to work as opposed to the other way around, and I struggled with that when I finished my dissertation and then right around the start of the pandemic. In that trailer, I spoke about how I often found myself with a considerable amount of times on my hands post-doctorate completion. And then COVID hit and we couldn't go anywhere, and I was finding myself still looking for something fun and entertaining and, entertaining my brain. Within the trailer, I also mentioned that I had a very stark reckoning with how I was not walking, live life on purpose walk, and it was impacting my mood, my day, my overall health and mental wellness, and I just really genuinely did not like that. I know what I want to be about, and chasing experiences and learning, and that's what I want to be about. And I'm at that point in my life where I was approaching, I wasn't necessarily approaching life the way that I wanted to, and I wasn't appreciating the life's experiences the way that I wanted to be. I was taking opportunities for experience, conversation with others for granted. And I don't like the thought of that. I don't want to do that. So this podcast, the channel, all these things that we're doing and just kind of wrapping our brain around are ways in which we can escape back from something we're appreciative for, which is the full-time work, but can get, just a little bit mundane and a little bit of a downer sometimes, and finding passions elsewhere so that we're not just about what we do throughout the course of a work day. That is the why and the what, and about the channel and the podcast. But looking in things a little bit more in more depth, we definitely want to highlight how we're definitely not perfect at this living and learning and living life outside of the work that we do, and be able to be real honest about what that means, the highs and the lows of it, and not be afraid to talk about the struggles. And that's what these projects are really about. So this is me, and this is us taking some time to document our processes and learning new skills with the YouTube content. It's scripting and filming and editing, and I'm terrible at it, but I just really enjoy it. Probably not going to be all that great necessarily if we're being honest about what real podcasters do, and how the really great ones just can suck you in with their story, just lure you in and have really good storytelling techniques. I just want to learn a little bit more about it because, man, gosh, they grip you and they just bring you in. And there's a way to share content of a story that keeps people intrigued, right? I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of people in this world who have some valuable advice that we could always share with others when they need to hear it. You know, not everyone needs to hear it all the time, but I'm pretty sure that we all can find some inspiration from at certain points in our lives, knowing that we're not the first ones to experience some of these life challenges. And I think that's kind of what's really makes me hopeful when I think about how we can figure out how to live life outside of the work that we do, and the avenues in which we have to be able to learn those things, but to create a space for discussion about it. That is a little bit about what we're doing and why, and I'll leave it with what's upcoming. So we do have YouTube. About a year or so ago, we sold our sticks and bricks in our house to capitalize on the return on investment, and we are living full-time RV life right now. I am stationary at the moment because, like I said, I do have a day job, and I didn't know how. I knew I would love it. I didn't RV life. I didn't know how much I would love it or for how long. I can't tell you the amount of relief that I feel when I drive up to the RV every day, every single day after work. It's still not quite a year later. It still feels like vacation glamping. And that just has done wonders for my mood when I get home at the end of the day. The other thing that was super critical to that was downsizing from our sticks and bricks, and almost my, daily life that I have is in this RV. We do have a storage unit with the furniture from the house that we didn't want to get rid of just yet, but we're not always going to be, RV life. And we really, honestly, we just purchased that furniture, so we didn't want to get rid of it just yet. The time may come when we choose to, but for now it's somewhere else. But the act of downsizing and getting rid of so much stuff was super, super helpful and so appreciative. And I knew it was hard and it was going to be hard, but I didn't know how much I needed to do that. So that is a part of our reality. That's a part of our channel with YouTube, and it's going to be part of the podcast. We have some other stuff that's upcoming as well. We have some planned trail rides and some mountain biking content. A while back, I purchased a frame essentially for a mountain bike, a specialized hard rock, and I wanted to be able to convert it into not just a mountain bike, but have it be something I could have not fat tires on for mountain biking, but I wanted to be able to have traditional mountain bike tires, but then also be able to switch it to gravel tires for gravel rides and have a little bit more of a hybrid bike. So we have a video out, and I just filmed kind of taking that apart, and I'm working on editing that to, rebuild it. So we'll have some content relative to that as well as rides. Given what we do, we like to find universities and walk around campus and just put on the GoPro and walk around and kind of get to be a student for a day in their shoes on their campus and just walk around and enjoy it. Given what we do, I find that really, honestly, really enjoyable. Cooking, a lot of that on our YouTube channel. A lot of it now is RV cooking. But hands down, one of the things that I absolutely love doing most in this world in terms of when I get to come home and my unwind is cooking a good dinner. And there are plenty of cooking videos out on the channel, and we're going to be highlighting some of those things within the RV Life content on both the channel as well as the podcast. I mentioned storytelling, and I mentioned wanting to kind of get more into that and finding some local stories where we happen to be living and splitting time with, and things that are kind of meaningful to us. And if there's a way we can tell a story and kind of give an additional light, not that everybody in the world's going to hear it by any means, but give some additional light to a story from our local community, something we appreciate or something we feel just needs to be told, then we want to be able to highlight those things in a positive way, but also in a realistic and truthful way with storytelling. So we have an awful lot going on. We have a Patreon channel where we have some patron-only content in addition to the YouTube stuff. And there's just a fair amount going on. And we wanted to kind of add this to the realm so that we could bring some additional visuals and hopeful discussion to some of the things that we find that we're most passionate about. Whether it be mountain biking, whether it be my spouse's obsession with RC cars, and whether it be, walking a campus and filming it and really just get to kind of see there and be, or putting the GoPro on and, and riding through the mission trails in San Antonio. There's just a lot going on, and it could be RV life, or it could just be, not non-RV life type of stuff. But that's really kind of just a real quick overview, hopefully, of what we're going to be getting into. So this is obviously the premise of the podcast, and just wanting to kind of put it out first. The next episode is going to be something RV life related. I do need my spouse to be present for that particular podcast and video. But if you're not familiar with our channel and you like talking about RV life and you like talking about this concept of how we live life outside of the work that we do to find more fulfillment in our everyday lives, if that's something that resonates with you, please find us on YouTube, kro.Productions. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok. We would love to engage with you in any way. If you feel so compelled, you can find us on Patreon. There are multiple membership tiers, like here to hang out, or you want to help support. Beyond those items, you can find us in the podcast lineup, and we would definitely be willing to connect there as well. So in the next episode, some RV life content, but we end every video that we do on YouTube with some sort of thank you for watching, so thank you for listening. But also, until next time, let's be really intentional and cognizant about how we live life outside of the work that we do.